First, I would like to thank the person who cashed at me a little something so I can get some food and something to eat. I really appreciate that. And I thank you guys for, all the support, the likes, the comments, and how you guys really are in tune with me and you guys mess with me. I appreciate that, especially after rebuilding the channel that I worked so hard for, and I put everything into that last channel and then it just gets snatched from me. And, life just seems to always crumble within the last few years. But today I just want to talk about how, the world we living in is some type of spiritual prison, some type of loose energy farming. That's like the best way I could put it. I was watching something earlier and these people were arguing about the government shutdown and they were talking about, the right and the left and this, that, and the third, and how if they would have got along sooner and this, that, and the third. And I'm just like, a lot of this stuff is all planned, right? All of it's planned, really. And it's just the government creates an audience for the people to make you think like you have power to vote and that your vote actually matters. Think about it this way. People have been voting ever since how long? And has the world significantly changed in a positive way? Or has there been more wars, a proliferation of all types of things, taxes, daily type of battles in different countries, United States military bases all over the world, poverty, people that are struggling economically, mentally, physically, spiritually. Yet you see these CEOs in these opulent towers of decadence, making millions of dollars, having all this wealth and all this money and all this success. And they could care less about the people beneath them, the people that work for them, the people that give the company their years, the prime years of their life. If you think about it, the prime years of your life are already controlled. From the age of 5 years old to 18, it's mandatory to go to school. There's no ifs, ands, and buts. Then when you get 18, 19, 20, you're going to be forced to go to college. If you're not lucky enough to make a YouTube channel or become a Twitch streamer or something that makes millions of dollars, that gets a great financial, economic business infrastructure in place and get it validated and get the power consolidated. But for the most part, after you finish college, you go work for a company or a corporation. And then you do that for 40 years of your life. And then boom, in a wink, in a blink, your whole life is gone. I don't know, I think because a lot of us in this community are creatives. We like to create things. We like to innovate. We like to just, put our souls on a pedestal. And for us, being locked down, being trapped, and just having that feeling like you can't create when you want, how you want, whenever you want. It doesn't sit well with our hearts and our souls and our minds and our ambitions and our innovations. We live in a very peculiar world where it's almost like follow the leader, where most people are drones or NPCs and they just go along to get along and they don't really question things behind the scenes. We live in a vile, evil, satanic world. And I was looking at something else earlier as well. It was talking about Epstein and the files and all this. I'm like, do you really think they're going to release those files to the public? Those files probably been redacted, and names edited out. And the real people will never be brought to justice for their wicked and vile crimes that they did to children. It's just evil. And yet these people are billionaires. Yet these people own companies. Yet these people own nations, Yet there's good people, everyday regular people that will never engage in such incredulous activities. Yet these people are ignored. They're thrown to the floor. They're pummeled. And they don't have a chance to really stand up and actually get into a position of power, wealth, and influence. You see, The seeds of power, true, pure, good power, comes from the people. If the people agree to whatever the people that, write the laws agree, then it's an agreement. If the people disagree and say, we're not going to follow that law, and if the police and if the military and if everybody gets on code, then there's nothing the lawmakers can do but change the law. If they try to bring the police infrastructures or the police authorities or the military industrial complex or whatever infrastructure or power and authority they have, and the people that are representatives in that role, if they say, no, we're not going to do this to these people, we're not going to bomb this city, we're not going to, go to war with our own American people, we're not going to do none of those things because that's horrible and it's horrid, we're not going to do that, then there's really nothing much those lawmakers can do, right? But the problem is, this world has a lot of war amongst each other, amongst cities, nations, classes, races, the gender wars. It doesn't make any sense. We all should get along. We all should come together. Because with unity, the unity of the Spirit is the fruitfulness of the Spirit. And we can't all be at war with each other and at each other's necks. No, that's not the way to live. We have to be at peace. But the problem with this world is it's not conducive to peace. It's like, let's say you get dropped off on an island, but you have no money. Or let's make it even better. Let's say you get dropped off on an island and you have $1 million, but there's no stores, but you got $1 million. Now, what can you do with that money? You're on an island. There's no stores around. There's nobody around, just you by yourself, but you got $1 million. Now, the money's pretty much useless, right? Let's say you're on Mars or somewhere else, Now that money instantaneously becomes useless. But in a system of corruption and oppression, that money is the main prioritization. It's the main preliminary thing people judge you on before they get to know your soul and get to know your spirit. But on an island, you can't eat money. You can only turn it to fire for fuel, right? So you got to hunt the little crabs, you have to find the little fish, you have to find the little snails, you have to eat the coconuts on the trees. That becomes money instantly. You see? And we live in a world where they take the most precious and abundant things and they monetize it, they monopolize it. The water, the food, electricity. Nikola Tesla found a way to get free electricity, but one of the Illuminati people are like, nah, that they can't be, you can't have that. Then Tesla, mysteriously passes away, it gets neutralized or assassinated. It's brutal. I always think, man, how many great minds we have out there, how many great ambitious people, if they were just in the right environment, could create and make the next amazing the next amazing technological advance that advances all humankind. We should then have life longevity types of things that give us cellular rejuvenation on a molecular level, that slows the aging process or reverses it. And you may not be able to live forever, but give you another 50 years or 100 years. Imagine living to like 400 years old, or imagine living as long as elves. In the anime, how elves live like thousands of years, And one of my favorite games ever, called Lost Odyssey, one of the immortals' name is Cain, and he lived like 10,000 years or something like that. He's been through countless battles, countless wars, countless cities, had different families, and he's been through it all. Imagine that, man. But there's no point in having eternal life or immortal life if your life is miserable, if your life is a life of drudgery, if your life is a life of slavery, if your life is a life of being prohibited to really live your true ambitions and goals and dreams. I don't think that we should be put on this world to suffer. We should be put on this world to create, to imitate the Creator, to imitate the God-like being, who's the righteous one, not the evil one, but the good God, and be able to let our souls expand. I always will say this, but creation and creating, whatever it is you create, man, whether you make videos, whether you make music, whether you make poetry, whether you make paintings, digital art, Whatever it is, it's the expression of the soul ultimately. And I think that we all should create something. I think we all should make music. We all should write. We all should be poets. We all should be philosophers. We all should have this inside of our souls. Because being a normal, everyday NPC, it's not good for the integrity of the spirit. Your spirit needs nourishment, and it needs nourishment daily. If you put a seed inside of a dirty, area, or like a dirty, let's say you take a good seed and you put it inside, like, what's a good example? Some toxic factory in like Chernobyl in Russia, where it's like radioactive, looks like Fallout 3 or Fallout New Vegas or Fallout 4. You got creatures coming out the water, and you put a seed there where the seed's going to get mutated by its environment. So you have to take that seed and nurture it carefully and concisely and precisely, so that seed can grow into a nice, wonderful tree, bear its fruits, and the fruits grow, and they lay their seeds, and it keeps growing until you have a nice garden or a nice forest of prosperity. I think a lot of us probably should have been around the right people in our lives when we were younger, and especially now. But the age pill is real, and that's something we have to take in consideration. A lot of us, man, I believe a lot of us have talents. We have hidden talents, untapped potential that unfortunately may never be reached if we don't try to reach in and grab it ourselves. And I don't want it to sound like cope and hope and blue pill normie talk, but you have to really believe in yourself when nobody else does. That's the only way to get ahead. Or try to get ahead at least, even if you're behind. Even if you're so behind the race, people done lapped you up 1,000 times. It doesn't matter. You stay determined, you stay focused, and you try to create things, and you try to build yourself up from scratch. And this is coming from me, somebody that's been doxxed, by people who got obsessed with me online, who just took things too far. Didn't, just crazy people who I'll never meet, but are watching this very video, and they doxed me, got me kicked out, and they're still watching me, and it's crazy because you got to think about the amount of focus it takes to just dox somebody. You don't dox a nobody. You dox somebody who you think is somebody, because if it's just a nobody, you just watch your video, press dislike, and keep going on about your day. But to sit there and gather information, gather this person's name, watch all of their videos, and try to attack them, get them kicked out their house, get them put into a position where they're homeless, and then hide behind the anonymity of the internet. Knowing if this person knew you were one of the people that doxed them and they see you in real life, it's doxing somebody. I never thought that would ever happen to me. I used to hear about it all the time, never paid it no attention. But living through that, surviving that, and still creating, still manifesting, beats, and, my beats ain't the best. I'm still new at producing, I'm not, and then I'm creating music on a broken laptop, like the laptop is broken, but I'm still trying, and once I get better equipment, I'm just going to get better, better, and better. I'll never give up. That's one thing you guys have to understand. Even when it's hopeless, never give up. You may never live your dreams. You may never get that girl. You may be ugly. You may be rejected. You may be poor. You may be whatever. It may never happen for you. But for you to just give up, for you to just say, well, forget it, I'm out to just give up, then what's next? Besides going ER, Even though I know there's going to be a proliferation of that in the future. There's going to be a lot of men going to ER in the future, point blank period, because that's what it's naturally going to lead to. When you take the things that a man really wants, a wife, kids, and financial stability and stabilization, when you take that away, men lose their minds. Every man wants to have a good girl in his life. Point blank period. Not some robot, not some AI bot that you programmed to like you. No, you want a real woman with a real soul, with a real heart, with a real spirit. And I think we all deserve that, honestly.